Alright, so many of you that follow this channel for the Fujifilm and photography content know that I absolutely refuse to pay the X100V ridiculous resale prices. I believe the quote was, "As I refuse to let these Fujifilm X100V resellers dick down my wallet with 200% markups. It's ridiculous. I'm not paying it." That was that was the direct quote, right? And that was an honest moment. But despite all that, once the X100VI was announced, I actually did pre-order it. So I pre-ordered the X100VI nearly a year ago at this point, back in February, and we're now in December, towards the end of the year. It's almost 2025. So I ordered this, or pre-ordered, technically, pre-ordered this camera, 10 months ago, and then it was then back ordered, and then I got it in my hands maybe a week ago. So my first thought was just to return it because I don't think I need it now. But then I thought, maybe I should just give this camera a shot. Like many others caught up in the Fujifilm hype after 2020. I was intrigued by the X100V and, wanted to try it out. And of course, it was sold out everywhere. And after years of patiently waiting, my discipline has finally been rewarded with the X100VI in my hand. But of course, I haven't been without a Fujifilm camera during this time. I fell in love with the X Pro series, owning both the X Pro 1 and 2, even trying out the X Pro 3. And I discovered some of my favorite lenses along the way as well, like the 35mm f1.4 that I absolutely love, the 23mm f2, and the 27mm f2.8. And I also have like an 18 or 16mm as well, at like 1.4 or whatever, 1.8, whatever it is. And I've come to realize that much of the Fujifilm magic we love comes from the character of these lenses, while of course the X100 series limits you to just the 23mm f2. And though the 35mm full frame equivalent focal length is arguably the most versatile, especially when it comes to like portrait, maybe a little bit of landscape or like environmental portraits, I personally tend to gravitate towards like the 40mm and 50mm, full frame equivalent lenses. All right, so to cut to the chase, I'm not gonna leave you in suspense. I'm keeping this camera. But first, let me tell you why I'm keeping it. While I've been super critical of the X100 line in the past, and I honestly still believe that the X Pro line is far superior in many ways, we just got news at the time of filming this video that we won't be getting the X Pro 4 for this year, next year, or the foreseeable future. It doesn't seem like it's a high priority at all for Fujifilm to release its successor to the X Pro 3, which I was definitely waiting for because I do like interchangeable lenses. Like I said, I love a lot of the lenses that I've been shooting on, and I also just like the body style. I just like the Pro line more, in my opinion. But that was one huge reason as to why I decided to keep the camera, because I figured if I wanted something that's modern, I might as well hold on to it. Let's talk about my experience with shooting with it over the weekend. So having shot with older Fujifilm cameras over the years, I assumed this would be a fairly familiar, situation. So I skipped the walkthroughs or reading the manual, and I wish I hadn't actually, because one feature that could have helped me in real time was the zoom function. Now, I didn't realize that the X100VI could do, digital crop at 50 and 70mm. Sure, I know I can of course crop in post, but I prefer to do it in camera because it helps me with composing a shot. I don't really like composing it, after the fact, because, in person, I can, switch to 50 or 70, shuffle around, move my feet, get closer, get further back, use foreground. It just feels more creative, and I feel like I can get a better image if I do it in camera. Now, even though having that extra reach in camera is nice for composition's sake, the 50mm equivalent crop doesn't beat out the 35mm f1.4 in depth of field and just light capture. But when you factor in the compact nature of the X100VI, it's a compromise I can make for certain situations. Another feature that I thought made this camera really worth it was the built-in ND filter. Now, of course, you could just screw one on, but having it built in and being able to program it to a button on camera, just quickly toggle in between having a couple stops in ND versus not, is pretty dope. And also, it's just one less filter you have to screw on. You can, instead swap that out for a CPO, and instead swap that out for, glimmer glass, pro mist, whatever. You can stack other filters and, not have to have, a ton of filters stacked on your lens. Another thing that's pretty intriguing about the built-in ND is the fact that this camera actually is pretty capable of shooting really good video. It has f-log 2, 422 10-bit, can shoot 6.2K, although it's not open gate, it's still, 4K DCI, so it's more than usable for video. And I plan on trying out the video, especially being able to bake in certain recipes and get that same photo cinematic filmic look through video. Is pretty intriguing. It's something that I'll definitely try out in the future. Of course, I have an FX6 and A7 IV. I'm not going to be using this X100VI as like a cinema camera, but it may be nice for quick family videos, or if I'm in a pinch and I just don't have another camera on me, knowing that this can shoot good usable log footage is pretty nice. And of course, there are some modern intangibles coming from an older camera like the X Pro 2, which is several years old. Having touchscreen, pinch to zoom and playback, swiping through images. The screen is very responsive, and having the flip down screen for, waist level shots is nice as well. Renaming recipes with the on-screen keyboard instead of having to use like the little joystick is nice. The AI autofocus stuff like animal recognition, left, right eye priority. It helped me out a lot at the zoo, taking pictures of, animals. Also much faster image transfer through the Fujifilm app. Being able to transfer JPEGs to my phone quickly, even when the camera's turned off, made it easy to share photos with my family after leaving the zoo, without needing to use a USB SD card adapter or, just wait, forever for those images to be transferred over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth from the app to the camera. It's much faster. Also, faster burst drives, which is pretty helpful when taking pictures of my daughter running around, or future children, or family, or animals and dogs. Anything that's fast moving cars, vehicles, having that faster burst is really nice. I feel like this list is getting pretty long, but also of course you have, color chrome effect in Reala Ace. You have the new, Fujifilm film simulation, which I haven't seen a lot of recipes for, but it's something I might tweak in the future. I'm looking into making my own recipes through the application on camera, which of course you can do that with X Pro 2, but having access to the new film sim is pretty cool. Also, the built-in flash. I've been testing out the built-in flash, and being able to get that cool like disposable camera flash in darker situations. It's a look, and it adds to its versatility. I have like I said, I have a recipe for flash that I haven't used extensively. I haven't been in a situation where I need it yet, but having that versatility is nice. Also, another big one is image stabilization. Now, I haven't tested this out, in full depth. I've taken a couple photos on my, X Pro 2 with the 23mm f2 side by side just to get an idea of like sharpness and everything. But one thing that I noticed is that, of course, you can't really discern the difference in sharpness too much with the, screens on the back of the camera or even on your cell phone too much. And of course, you can pinch to zoom and see, but I think a lot of the time, the sharpness was more so attributed to the fact that the X100VI has image stabilization and the X Pro 2 does not. So that, little jitter or camera shake after you press the shutter button, means a lot when you're in low light situations. Image stabilization is huge, especially even for, night photography. I want to get into that more. Slow shutter stuff. That's another modern benefit that you just don't have on an older camera. Also, of course, the 40.2 megapixel resolution. Now, of course, this helps out with, being able to crop digitally, which is nice. It does go down to like 10 megapixels if you shoot at the 70mm focal length. But 40.2 megapixels is nice if you decide to print. Last year, I took a really awesome picture of Convict Lake, and I took that on my Sony A7 IV because my X Pro 2 was just only 20 something megapixels, and then also the optical image stabilization wasn't present. So a lot of the images I took on the X Pro 2 at blue hour or at sunrise were shaky and blurry because there's no image stabilization. Even on a tripod, I didn't have a shutter release, but having to press the shutter, there's all the shake it needed to be blurry. So 40.2 megapixels is nice because you can of course print those out, you blow those images up, and it's nice to be able to have that versatility with resolution on your hip on a super small portable light camera that anyone can use. Despite all of these great features and how impressive this camera is, I still want a new X Pro 4. Of course, it's never going to come out at this point, but I love using my collection of lenses that I've acquired, and it's something that the fixed lens X100VI simply cannot offer. For now, I'll enjoy using this camera. Of course, it is limited in a sense because it's never in stock and it most likely will be discontinued soon. So I know I can recoup my investment if I ever decide to sell it later in the future and get something else. But meanwhile, it'll serve as the perfect everyday walk around camera. And of course, if you want to witness this journey, definitely subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be trying out a ton of new recipes that I haven't had access to in the past. But yeah, it's been a pleasure as usual. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, stay fresh. Peace.